And
Hey, it's
Buff can
Friday,
see.
right?
It is Friday. What's your Friday? Ad-click Friday?
Ad click Friday. You know what? I just don't use that enough anymore. Now I've been doing stuff. I only really talk about it when I'm with you guys.
That's
So,
disappointing.
but again, for those who maybe are watching live or those who are watching the repeat of this, Ad Click Friday is this. You get all this free content on the web. You go to places like Dealer Refresh, for example, or you go to newspaper websites. So wherever you get something free, I happen to use a service called PDF Merge where I merge PDF documents together for free. They're providing you with all this stuff for free. Pexels provide you images for free. Do them a favor, help them make some money. Click on the ads on their page while you're there. Do it every day, but certainly do it on Fridays. That's why we have it as Ad Click Friday.
And certainly click on the ads on Dealer Refresh.
Yes, go to Dealer Refresh right now, dealerrefresh.com, and click on an ad, and then click back and click on an ad and click back. And Alex and Jeff might earn enough for what, a cup of coffee a day?
Cup of coffee, help pay for the server.
There you go. Yep.
That's the big one.
No doubt.
So that is Ad Click Friday. Now everyone who's watching knows what that is.
And what about your book? Books.
So I've got this book
for plug number one.
Oh yeah, so here's plug number one. It's been out for a little over a year. The price is the lowest it's going to be now, $9.99 on the Amazon.
So cheap.
Yeah. This book, by the way, which is a $50 book on Amazon. I got a nice review that I made.
Free.
Oh yeah, you did. And this one's going to be free to someone who's watching Dealer Refresh right now, our Refresh Friday. But this one's $50 on Amazon. You can buy it in bulk through my website, $29 a copy if you buy 20 or more. Why so expensive? Because it should be more. How can I teach you to ask for all the money if I don't ask for all the money? I'm telling you right now. And so it will never be lower on Amazon than $49.99. I'm just not going to do it. I don't care how long it's out there. Fact is, I got a Gary House. If you know Gary, he's a former dealer, a former 20 group moderator, a great car guy, always liked him. He sent me a nice review to my email, congratulating me on the book, but his review was funny. It said, I was asking myself, why in the hell would I ever spend $50 on a book? I don't spend that much money on anything on Amazon. Why would I buy this book? He said he bought it, he read it, and he's going to try to make it required reading at his academy classes. So there's that. So he said it is the best car dealer book written this decade. And we are 8 years into this decade, gentlemen. So I take it as a real compliment.
Yeah, you got 80% of it now.
Yeah. Before I forget, so the reason for this book today, though, is Amazon made a mistake. I know Jeff Bezos is the smartest man in the world, but one of their printers screwed up, and it's upside down. It is a one-of-a-kind freak of nature. Now, I'm going to warn you, the winner of this book, you got to read it backwards. So you turn it upside down, but it's more than that. You don't start here and read normal. You start here, and you got to read it backwards like that. So the winner of this book will be someone who has liked this broadcast and has shared this broadcast. So do those two things. And if more than one of you does that, we will select a winner. I'll sign it. I'll get your address. I'll sign it. I'll send it off to you. And you will have the only copy of Ass Backwards Assumptive Selling. How's that? We'll try to come up with a name for it. That was my on-the-fly name. Someone has to have a better name than that. So.
And what do they have to do to win?
They have to like or like with a happy face, like with any of those buttons, even throw up a mad face, sad face, whatever you want to do. And then also share. Click that little share button and share today's broadcast with your friends and family so that they can be as refreshed as you on this Refresh Friday.
Good. Ad Click Friday.
Well, yeah, Ad Click Friday. Hashtag Ad Click Friday. Go to Dealer Refresh and click on an ad. So, Jeff,
we have you on today because you, I guess you have a self-proclaimed uh, professional or guru or whatever you want to call it on paid search. And you've got I guess, a topic within that you're pretty headstrong about, and that's whether or not dealerships or, let's say, any brick and mortar small business should be buying or purchasing their own branded name in paid search.
So yeah, so you can put any title you want on your profile on LinkedIn, and one of the titles that I've given myself is SEO SEM Skeptic. It doesn't mean that I'm anti SEO or an SEM, but from the SEM standpoint, what we're talking about today, there really are two entities that tell you absolutely positively must bid on your own name in AdWords or you're an idiot. And those two entities are Google and your SEM provider. They even have data. Yeah, isn't that funny? I like to say follow the money, but they even have data that says 1 + 1 = 3. And frankly, I'm a bit of a skeptic on 1 + 1 = 3. And so I generally advise dealers not to bid on their own name. Now, I will start with who should be bidding on their own name, and that is Atlanta Toyota, San Francisco Toyota, Sarasota Ford. If you have a city name in your business name, you cannot make your city a negative keyword, and you can't make your brand a negative keyword, and so you're stuck. You've got to bid on your own name.
But I mean, you're almost not bidding on your own name. You're just bidding.
True. You're bidding on the city, and you're bidding on the city, and you're bidding on the brand, which makes sense or can make sense.
So it's all a conspiracy. These manufacturers are forcing dealers to change their name to be Volkswagen of Burlington just so they can sell more ad clicks.
What's funny about that is if you go back, so when I was at the Asbury Automotive Group in 2007, a lot of the manufacturers were pushing dealers not to use city names. They were against it. Yeah. Because they were afraid that the dealers were trying to maximize search visibility and steal the organic listings of their neighbors, right? So if there are 5 Ford dealers that are in the city of Dallas, it's not fair to give one of them Dallas Ford and not the other 4. Anyway, but yeah, now it's funny. They are pushing to get the name of the dealer off of the building, and they want the city name. That's a big one. Mercedes has always been big about that.
Yeah, they have been for quite a few years.
But the real conspiracy is it's funny you mentioned the OEMs. It's the OEMs and their co-op and their co-op partners and what they are paying dealers to do. And they're paying dealers to steal share from each other. It's a huge waste. And a lot of that is all these dealers all bidding on each other's names, creates a tremendous amount of waste, and it doesn't conquest any deals. So we'll use Ford as an example. If every Ford dealer in your market is only buying Ford names and they're buying each other's names, what happens to the guy that's looking for a Silverado? Does he never get served up your ad for an F-150? Does he never have that opportunity? So anyway, back to buying your own names. For most dealers, it's a complete waste. Everyone who is looking for you will find you. Now, I have a big pushback I get from dealers from time to time is, well, all my competitors are bidding on my name. And if I don't buy my own name, well, then they're going to steal my traffic. And I said, oh, okay, so buying competitive names is necessary in your market. Oh, absolutely. And I said, okay, then, so do you buy your competitors' names?
No.
And more often than not, they say, well, no.
Because it doesn't have any ROI.
Yeah. So I say, right? If you're not buying your competitors' names because the clicks you get are unqualified and they leave your site right away, and you have to pay 2 or 3 times more than your competitor for the same click, and yours is an unqualified click, why are you bidding on your own name? Let them bid on it. They'll get the unqualified clicks. Now, there is one other exception that a dealer has made to me, and I think it's a sound exception. And that is mobile in a market where you have an older demographic.
Okay.
The older demographic on their mobile device, if they are searching for your dealership, they don't know that they need to scroll past the ads, because Google has now done a great job of making the ads not look like ads. They don't know that they need to scroll past that to find you. And so if you want to make the argument that
How old?
Demographic and I need them to see me on mobile, then
38. No.
How old?
I'm gonna say 60 and up.
So if you're a Buick dealership.
Yeah, so if you're a Buick dealership, absolutely buy your own name. And also, don't just buy Buick, your own name in Buick, buy the word Buck and Bick, because the fat fingering.
And if you're in Florida.
And if you're in Florida, absolutely. It's funny you say that, because it is a Florida dealer who wants that exception. But anyway, so I have a client who took my advice, and in September, Chevy dealer quit buying their own name. And instead, they took that budget and moved it to Chevy dealer. And there are a number of Chevy dealers in their market. And what they saw was an increase in their organic traffic from people searching their own name. So those people found them because they own the page for their name, right? They've got the Google My Business listing. They've got, the top 3 spots in organic. So they saw that increased traffic in organic. They saw those conversions that used to come from pay-per-click coming into organic. And then on the term Chevy dealer, they owned that term in their market. They saw a tremendous amount of really qualified traffic that generated leads, leads, calls, and sales.
What do you mean they own that term?
Well, because they had enough budget in that term, they didn't have, there were not times where they were not bidding on that. Their share of voice on that keyword was 100% basically. They were able to participate in that keyword at all the times that they wanted to, versus, only being able to dip into that keyword a little bit. Their cost per click on that keyword came down because their quality went up. And the bottom line, by the way, is one of the reasons that that Google and your pay-per-click providers insist on you buying your own name is they know that's where the qualified traffic is. Because people looking for you are looking for you because they need your phone number, because their car is in service and they want to know what time it's going to be ready.
Exactly.
And so you show this really high conversion rate when in effect it's a conversion that you're paying for and that you would have received anyway. So there's my 2 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents. So
what are you saying? What's the average cost per click on a dealership's branded name? Do you have anything around that?
So, and I said I hate when people
depends on who's paying for it,
though. Well, I have seen anywhere from 51 cents, which we used to see pretty commonly, to lately I've seen above $2 per click. My point is that I don't care if it's co-opt and you're only paying half. I don't care if it's 51 cents. Use that money for something else.
I was going to say, so if it's 51 cents, why not spend the money and make sure that you get the click? We know it's a good click. Typically, if someone does click on your branded keyword search, you're going to get a pretty high conversion percentage. So why not just spend that 51 cents?
Well, it's not 51 cents anymore for almost every dealer out there. It's more like $2 to $3. But that said, let's say it was 51 cents. Let's say it was a dime. Let's say it was a penny. Who cares what it is? You're going to get, would you rather pay for it or get it for free? And my point is you're going to get that click anyway for free. And they're going to find you anyway for most dealers out there and for most situations. There are some dealers that don't even have to buy pay-per-click. For example, if I'm a small Porsche dealer in a market, let's say I'm the Omaha Porsche dealer, and I've got a good, decent inventory of Porsche, and I've got a decent inventory of used cars. But, like any good Porsche dealer, I probably have 20 used cars. Why am I buying any pay-per-click, right? Why am I not just making sure that my vehicles are merchandised well and listed on all the right sites?
I agree with that.
People who are looking for me are going to find me. And there's no one who's going to own SEO for Porsche like I'll own it. I'll have all the search visibility. Google's pretty smart, right? And they'll figure it out, and they'll get people to my site on the free side. People looking for Porsche in my market are going to find me. So I mean, that's just one example. Volvo is probably another, right? Any of these brands that don't have, 4,000 dealers across the country can probably discontinue SEO and SEM and not miss a beat. That's why I'm a skeptic. By the way, some new folks have joined. I don't know if you've joined because you've heard about the abomination known as the upside down, or what did Mike Phillips call it? The ass backwards assumptive selling, or ass backwards stawning. We're giving this away.
We love having you on, Steve.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we're on plug number 2.
Yeah, well, so it's
every
a plug
15 minutes.
Refresh.
Yeah.
This is a free book for people who
That's
like.
right.
They have to like, and only 10 people have liked.
Keep going. It's hilarious.
So only 10 people have liked us so far. You got to like us. That means use any of those buttons that like or smile or laugh or go, wow. And then also share today's broadcast. And someone who's done both will be chosen at random, and they will win this one-of-a-kind deformity with the printing upside down. Thank you to Amazon.
Signed by you.
Signed by me, mailed out by me. We'll drop it in the mail to you today. So priority mail, you'll get it probably Tuesday, worst case scenario. And you will be the most popular person on your block with the upside down book. I guarantee it.
Most popular.
Thank you.
Sure.
So would you say, Steve, and we have a commenter named Ian, and he's simply saying that when a dealer buys his or her own name, it just makes the provider look better.
Yep.
And that's why it's pushed, because it's not that expensive to do it.
Well, that's exactly right, because it does bring them, as Ian says, it gives them a lower overall cost per click. They say, oh, look at us. We got you from your $3 cost per click to $2.85. And look, we generated X number more leads. And the fact is, for dealers who decide to buy your own name, if you say, Steve, you're wrong, I got to buy my own name, I got to protect it, whatever. Okay, then do this. Separate that campaign completely. Judge that campaign completely different from the other campaigns, because what you might find is that there's a tremendous amount of waste in the other campaigns. They're generating no real visits, right? No human visits. They're generating no leads, no calls, no sales. And then you can reassess that budget. Once you clean out and get some transparency around your SEM, the average dealer I find today is wasting about $6,000 a month in either waste or fraud. And they can either redirect that budget to something else, or they can put it in their pocket, or they can have pizza Fridays, whatever they want to do. But $6,000 a month, that starts to add up. Pretty soon you're talking real money.
That's serious. So what about, what happens if a dealer comes across a pay-per-click provider who will not separate that campaign out from others?
Yeah, so they need to run.
I didn't used to work for one of those or anything.
No, you never
heard of that tactic.
Yeah, so, and you never worked for anybody who commingled organic and paid traffic together to show one big, giant, beautiful report.
No, never.
Yeah, so my first thing is for any pay-per-click provider that you're going to do business with is pay Google directly. And my second thing is to pay Google directly. And my third is to pay Google directly. And if your pay-per-click provider won't allow you to put up your own credit card to pay Google directly for both pay-per-click and display, you need to run. Now, once you're paying Google yourself, it's your AdWords account. You make sure that your pay-per-click provider properly links your AdWords account to your Google Analytics account, not the one that your website provider put up there, but the one you own. And once you have those two things linked properly, you can separate the campaigns yourself fairly easily and look in Google Analytics and find all the information you need. So,
how many providers in their industry do you think are doing it that way?
Well, real quick, can I throw a little thing in there, a little disclaimer here, because
yeah.
I don't feel comfortable with where I left that part about my former employer. They are, if you reach out to them and ask for this, and the person you're talking to will not, do this for you, ask for an escalation, because they will do this for you. So,
did you just get like a text message?
No, but I just started seeing lawyers out there. Like,
by the way, so just so we know, when Alex is talking about his former employer, he's talking about Checkered Flag Automotive.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right. Hey, some great comments out there, especially around the CarGurus SEM that they just started offering now.
Yeah, what's up with that? What do you know about that?
Well, I've seen the presentation.
So they're doing it for dealerships, right?
Yes. So I've seen the presentation, and I'll give you my opinion on them in a minute about their SEM and whether I would buy it from them or not. But
why would they even get into that game?
Because there's money in it. It's the margins in SEM. So CarGurus aside, SEM, I have said, is the greatest fraud ever perpetrated against dealers. So now I don't know if CarGurus is part of that, but that's what I said well before CarGurus got in that game. For those who read the Dealer Refresh blogs, you know that I wrote about CarGurus, and I said, why can't why can't my classifieds provider be like CarGurus? And what I wrote in the article was they provide leads and sales. The other classifieds providers talk about attribution. They want to talk about branding. They want to talk about customer engagement. I want to talk about leads and sales. Now, CarGurus, it has their issues. The dealers don't like them. They raise their price. They're crappy about the way they present it to you. They market to your leads after you get a lead. So you're paying CarGurus, you get a lead. Well, in that customer's inbox are emails from CarGurus encouraging them to go look at your competitors' cars and encouraging them to sell their cars on their own.
Yeah, but your dealership's is also in the mix.
No, I understand. But my point, sometimes
I never really count that though.
Sometimes they're in the mix and sometimes they're not. I've had clients where we mystery shopped them through CarGurus.
Probably depends on your inventory.
And the mystery shop inbox, we get like vehicles and none of them are the dealers. But anyway, let's say that some of them are, whatever. And that's fine. That's what CarGurus does. That's part of what they do. I'll take it because I'm still getting leads and sales. I'll live with it. But here's my point on their SEM. First off, I would never buy SEM from my website provider. I would also never buy SEO from my website provider. Your website provider sold you your website saying what? This is the greatest website ever and the best out-of-the-box SEO. You'll never have to spend a dime on anything else. And then the next week, they're selling you both of those things, SEO and SEM. Whose voice is that? What's that?
Whose voice is that?
He used to own a website company. He doesn't.
By the way, real website salespeople sell the whole thing in one shot.
True.
If any of you are listening, if you're not doing that, you're weak.
Indeed. And you're right. You should ask for all the money up front. So because of that, I also would not buy SEM from a classifieds provider like CarGurus. Not because I know anything about their SEM and what they do, but you can't serve two masters. All right.
I'm concerned about the data that they're collecting from it.
How about that? So they're getting all the data, and now they've got pixels on your website, and now they have all of the customer information from all of these visits. Is it possible they might market to the people who got to your site through their own pay-per-click? And they'll also know the people who got to your site from organic.
Yeah, that's scary.
So all the lawyers know, I don't know if CarGurus is going to do that. I do know that they market to your customers or your leads through their own means once they've submitted a lead to you through your site on your vehicle. So I'd rather not buy SEM from my classifieds provider. I'd rather not buy SEM from my websites provider.
What would the website provider do with it?
No, my problem with the website provider is I want them staying focused on that, number one, on my website. The other side of that is I don't want them commingling my paid traffic with my organic and then showing me this big picture of how great they're doing. And frankly, I don't know a website provider that sells SEM that does it in a way that provides the necessary transparency. If there is a website provider who's selling SEM and it's 100% transparent and you're letting the dealer buy directly from Google, great. Send me an email. I'll take a look at your product. I'll recommend it. Right now, I can't. So
yeah, I'm not totally in alignment with you here on the website provider not offering those other services because
they can offer them. I don't want to
building well, and why that's bad. But I mean, they need to be building the website to be landing places for those services. A better website all works in with that, doesn't it?
Well, they're going to see that traffic, right? They have their own Google Analytics code on there. They'll see that traffic.
Yeah,
they can
they need
monitor
to
that
know
traffic.
what the ad is so that they're landing it in the appropriate place.
No, your SEM should do that. Your SEM should land them on the right place, not on your homepage. And all SEM providers can do that. They get an inventory feed. They can land them right on the proper vehicle if it's a used click that they're buying. And then on top of that, some great SEM providers, people like, no, I'm not going to mention anybody. That's just will go on forever. And maybe at the end of the, in a year from now, maybe they're not going to be a great SEM provider. But the number one SEM provider I recommend today, they build landing pages for you that are high converting. And so what that gives you is the real insight, real transparency into the leads and sales that you're generating. When I take my pay-per-click traffic and throw it onto your website, and I don't track it beyond giving them to your website, you don't know the actual leads that came in, right? From SEM, you know how many leads SEM generated, but because it's not transferred into your CRM as having come from an SEM click, all you know is it's a website lead. But if the website has landing pages built by your SEM, and those forms are delivered into your CRM as having come from the SEM, then you can hold your SEM accountable, or more accountable, if you will. There you go. Ass Backwards Selling 2018. That's what Mike Phillips called the book. Plug number 3.
I know what you're asking though, Alex. If you have the synergies between the two, can that dealership website provider be able to better optimize those pages? But then what Steve is saying is the providers that he's referring to they're already building those pages using the data and
look, based on track records to date, I agree with Steve. I just don't want to shut that door now because there's stuff coming on the horizon that might change your tune a little bit.
Oh, sure. And I do know the best website provider out there that has the most truly search visible sites. The dealers who are using it are starting to show up higher than CarGurus on Google searches for their own vehicles. And I know that you should say, well, shouldn't they? Yeah, Mr. Dealer, Mrs. Dealer, go search your own vehicles on Google and see where you show up versus Google.
There was a day where a dealership could do that.
Yep.
About 10 years ago.
And this website provider who has their pricing right on their website, you know what you're going to pay. It's really expensive. They don't do any pay-per-click, and they're not going to do pay-per-click because if you're using their websites, you can greatly reduce the amount of pay-per-click that you need to do. Yeah. But they are going to provide you with a great website, and that's it. And so it's the only one I recommend today. It's really expensive. It's not for every dealer. I just worked with a tiny dealer in Hutchinson, Minnesota last week, a great little dealer that simply doesn't need to spend, $3,500 a month on a website, and they don't need it. So they'll get the OEM version, that's provided out there, and they'll do their best with that. But for dealers who can afford it, it's the only people I recommend today. So Rick Buffkin, who is it? Yep. The reason I don't want to tell you who it is because in a year they might have new ownership and everything goes to crap. Really.
Well, I think Rick's down to like the last days of deciding on which contract he's going to sign for his new website provider.
Hey, Rick, just send me a direct message and I'll tell you who it is, and I'll tell you who my pay-per-click provider is I recommend as well. Again, I don't want to do it on video because a year from now, maybe these guys are owned by different people and they're starting to steal from dealers. But right now, that's solid. Anyway.
Yeah, that never happens in our industry.
No. No. After every acquisition, companies only get better, right?
So I'd like to go back. Earlier, you were talking about click fraud. Can you elaborate on that? I mean, that was a big number that you were talking about. What's causing click fraud, and maybe just dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's not so much click fraud. It's the SEM is the biggest fraud perpetrated on dealers. Partially things like moving 30% of the budget to buying the dealer's name, and then that being the only place that delivers any results. It could be things like dropping all the traffic on the homepage. But this is some fraud that we've caught. So a good example is a dealer thought they were spending $10,000 a month on Google and Bing, and then they had a 20% management fee, which is fine on top of that. And so they were giving the pay-per-click provider $12,000 a month. And the pay-per-click provider showed them an invoice that said about $8,500 was spent on Google, about $1,500 spent on Bing. Once we got the real reports, once we got access to AdWords, we found out that they were actually spending only about, I think it was about $8,000, maybe less, on those two combined. And so it wasn't a $2,000 management fee on top of a $10,000 spend. It was a $4,000 management fee on top of an $8,000 spend. They were stroking a check for 12 grand, and they were getting $8,000 worth of keywords. So the keywords were being marked up, basically. So that's a big one. Display is another one. When you buy display directly through AdWords, you're only on the Google network, and you're getting about 1,000 impressions per dollar, all right? But if you're buying a display through your OEM's co-op, you're spending $13 to $18 per 1,000 impressions. That's a 13 times to 18 times markup on that display. And to make sure you understand what that means, on a $2,000 spend, 1,000 from you and 1,000 for your OEM, you get about 145,000 impressions. If you stopped using co-op and bought those impressions yourself for your $1,000, you'd get 1 million impressions. So you'd go from 145,000 impressions to 1 million impressions, and you could tell the OEM to keep their $1,000. Those are fraud. Now, there's still some click fraud out there. I saw somebody sent me the Google Analytics for a dealer recently. I'm not going to tell you the city. I'm not going to tell you the provider, but it's one of those providers that's kind of going downhill pretty fast. They used to be one of the bigger ones, and they're getting beat up pretty badly because they're getting found out. And so they're really interested in making money versus delivering value, and they're not even trying anymore. The map was incredible in Google Analytics on where their click traffic was coming from. Most of their click traffic was coming from outside the United States, and only about 10% was in their market. 10% of their total traffic was in their market. The rest were clicks from all over the world. And you know, I mean, come on. They used to at least try to cover that stuff up in the past. Today, not so much. So.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, go back to my own dealer days. I mean, somebody could have pulled this wool over my eyes. It certainly wasn't.
You would think it would be less likely nowadays, but obviously it's still going on.
It goes on until they get caught, and then as you guys both know, sometimes dealers are their own worst enemy and stuff like this. They see the digital marketing position as overhead, or they underpay it and that person gets on the take, whatever. They just don't care about the transparency piece. But I worked with a dealer.
Or you just, and I was one of these, or you just promote a salesperson into becoming the internet manager. You give them no training, and how would they know where to send them to training or do anything like that?
No, you're right. And the problem is some of the biggest thieves out there have the biggest sales forces. So they have people who can come in your dealership, good looking folks who could come in your dealership, smile, show you some real pretty reports. And for some reason that becomes they become the expert because they're in front of you and they've got all these great pretty reports. And I worked with a dealer where we caught their pay-per-click provider defrauding them to tune, I don't know, about $8,000 or $10,000 a month. The dealer promptly fired them. The dealer hired an honest agency. Now, the honest agency didn't have the resources to send in because they weren't stealing from dealers, so they didn't have and not everybody who has field a field force is stealing from dealers. I just want to make this a comparison. The honest agency had a monthly call that took about 20 minutes with the dealer because they just got to the nitty gritty, you know, the stuff that mattered. They went through the call, showed the results, moved on, talked about the next call and that kind of thing. And then throughout the month, the provider is on call, make changes anytime the dealer wants. Let's say the dealer says, hey, I got to sell some Escapes, or I got to sell some F-150s. This agency can make the changes very, very quickly. Anyway, 2 months after they fired the thieving provider, they fired the honest provider and rehired the thieving provider because the thieving provider came back with a new proposal. So, you know, I mean, you figure that one out. I don't know. I kind of give people I give people chances, but I give companies one chance, and that's it. I can't give multiple chances to a company. There are too many of them out there.
Well, unless your name's Auto Trader.
Yeah, well, and this wasn't an Auto Trader company. It wasn't a Cox company, but what I did find out later was the internet manager person who was in charge of the digital got to go to lunch with the rep on a regular basis. And so how much of it was relationship and how much was results? I know none of it was results because.
Well, I mean, to degree, a lot of times it is relationships, especially in our industry, it seems. We were talking about that earlier.
I mean, how many times you witnessed this happen to us where we'd cancel Auto Trader in one store and 2 months later, the GM's out at lunch with the Auto Trader rep.
Oh yeah, that would happen all the time.
Yeah, sounds like
sign back up. Come on,
same strategy.
Yeah, well, it's a relationship. There's nothing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to be careful. That's all.
Steve, there's a good question from Brian Tucker down there.
Yeah, so here's my problem with the so Brian, can you touch on using an approved SEM vendor versus an independent agency? And by approved, I'm assuming he means OEM approved. And here's what I will say for most OEMs, not all. I'm sure there are some great digital teams at the OEM level that do a great job of truly vetting the best provider and making sure that their only goal is to move metal for the OEM. So
for dealers.
For dealers.
The dealer team.
But the OEM's paying half. So, you know, to really move that metal for the OEM and for the dealers and to conquest and, you know, to make sure you're taking share from the true competitor, not from dealer to dealer. Now, I haven't met one of those OEMs yet that has that team, but I'm sure they're out there. For the OEMs that I'm aware of, the OEM partnership with the digital marketing company is again, relationship driven. And it's and they have gigantic RFPs sometimes that only the companies that have tremendous margins can afford to participate in. And there is, if you think there's no oversight at the dealership level of some of this SEM spending, there's less at the OEM level. And like I was talking about earlier, I mean, you've got Ford's a great example of co-opting Ford dealers stealing share from other Ford dealers. Versus co-opting dealers to go steal share from Chevy. And so what I like about an independent provider is, one, they might give you exclusivity in your market. And I said earlier, you can't serve two masters. And if you have two Ford dealers that are 10 miles apart and you're buying pay-per-click for both of them, how can you do that as a company? Oh, well, Steve, we have a Chinese wall that allows it. No, you don't, no. What you do is you buy the other guy's name and then you go in the other guy's store and you say, hey, he's buying your name over there. You got to do the same thing. And you drive the budgets up and you make great commissions. I've seen it and it happens. So I like to go with an independent. All of the good independents can get you all the co-op that they're allowed to get you, where some of the OEMs are throwing around 100% co-op. If you're truly not using all your co-op, then it truly is quote unquote free money, then I would look at it. But I would look at some of the other digital offerings first. So for example, on the Chrysler program, they've got some good email marketing from some companies right now that's actually solid. And I would go with an independent SEM provider and then use the co-op dollars for that, or use the co-op dollars for some of the video pre-roll that they're doing, which is okay. And again, I'm not going to name the companies that are in the FCA program, because again, a year from now they might change and not be as honest as they are. But for the most part, your OEM digital team that makes these decisions, they are maximizing their bonuses and they're not moving metal for you or the OEM. So
you're touching on something we should find a way to cover, like where, and it's, God, this would be such a moving target, like you say, but you know, what co-op dollars do you want with what manufacturer at this moment? And I know that would be so hard to keep up with. But,
Yeah.
And it changes.
I know.
Yeah. So just when you think the co-op program makes sense,
so many dealerships will sign up with these companies just because it's co-op.
Yep.
Yeah. So Chip
works against them.
Chip Diggs said it the best. I think this ought to be our motto: pass on approved anything. That's it. It's the best. Well, now he says approved vendor equals lobbyist. Yeah, great point. Yeah, pass on approved anything. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong demanding transparency. You know, the transparency I talked about is not allowed in some OEM programs.
You know, there's another side to this coin, though. If you are a vendor and you're trying to grow your business,
you're right.
You hit a plateau if you don't get into an OEM program. So if you like having a few hundred dealers, and that's you're right, that's doing it for you, that's great. But you know, it's definitely yeah.
But then you have to you have
double-edged sword.
Now you're within the ship digital realm.
Well, that's a whole other topic. Like, because I mean, Steve hit on it. You have to be of certain size and scale to be able to afford the hit on the margins that come from being an approved vendor.
Yep, you're right. And then it is a double-edged sword, because I know an honest company out there that just got approved by an OEM, and while it will mean more business for them, at the same time, I hope it doesn't make them dishonest. I hope it doesn't make them serve the OEM instead of the dealer. Which is so funny, because really the goals should be aligned, right? I mean, isn't that anybody new to this business, one of the first things you probably scratch your head on is, how come our goals don't seem aligned with our OEM, right? And they're not always, are they?
No.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think I know who you're talking about, so.
Good guys.
It definitely makes me real uneasy, because you know, I did spend some time working with some OEMs directly, and yeah, they were not bad people.
No.
You know, and some, I'll think of Subaru especially. You had some career Subaru folks who were on the dealer's side and were actively working for the dealers. And there were other OEMs where it was obvious that this was the shit job in the OEM world, where I was just going to do my year or two before I get promoted over to the marketing side, where I get to do OEM marketing, not dealer marketing. So,
but then you also have OEMs who hire a third-party company to be their digital arm, and those people have mouths to feed. You know, where are their loyalties? Are they to moving metal or making money? But then you also have this anomaly out there called Ford Direct, and in its founding, you know, with people like David Kane at the helm, it was founded to move metal. And where it went, and I don't know where it is today, but you know, if I look back a year ago, it was all about maximizing the bonuses of Ford Direct executives, and it was a profit center for the OEM. You know, dealers be damned. Hell, Ford be damned, right? Who cares if we move metal for Ford? Let's make bonus. And you know, I mean, that's one of the biggest ones out there that makes mistakes. Years ago, Mazda when they first brought out their Mazda dealer online tools, I think it might have been 2008.
MDOL.
They really got it. And I don't currently have a Mazda dealer as a regular client, so I don't know where we are today, but I do know I looked at it a few years ago, and it had it had degraded a little bit. Let's just say that. So anyway.
Yeah, I think they've probably fallen in line.
Falling in line with the get along to go along to get along kind of thing.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Steve, there's an interesting question here about, any tips or pointers for an independent store doing in-house SEM, but maybe we could fashion that to be, hey, what if you don't do co-op whatsoever? Any pointers for somebody who's not taking advantage of the OEM's dollar?
Yeah, so the key on digital, so let's back up. Some of us are old enough to remember when autotrader.com first rolled out, when AutoTrader, the magazine, decided we don't need a digital arm, and they let it become its own company. AutoTrader.com would come into dealerships and laugh at dealers who were spending money in the newspaper because it's not measurable. Everything you do online is measurable, right? And you're a fool if you spend any money on radio or TV or the newspaper, because this is the future and this is where your customers are. And why? Because it's all measurable. It's all trackable. And then suddenly, I don't know, about 5-6 years ago, everything became murky and we can no longer measure. And so my point is this: digital is all measurable. It's all trackable. And if you just put together some simple spreadsheets, anybody who wants to direct message me, friend me here, or go to my business page on Facebook, Steve Stauning, it's at SM Stauning /SM Stauning. I'll send you my spreadsheet that I have my clients use, and we can track all of the digital spend and make sure that it makes money. So whether you're an independent or you're a franchise dealer going it alone, or you're using your co-op, the fact is it's all trackable, and you can decide what makes sense for you. Before we came on this today, Jeff and I were talking about the different classified sites, and I won't mention any names, but when I was with Asbury, we had 90 stores, and while one classified site worked well in one market for one make, it was terrible 2 markets over for a different make. And so the same thing is true for all digital out there. Just because your 20 group says, oh, I'm getting great results from X, doesn't mean you will. And the only way to know it is to track and to measure it. And again, with digital, it's all measurable. It's all trackable.
Yeah, the comments are jumping down here.
They are.
I'm having a hard time keeping up with both of you.
Anyway, about the comments, it's not about the comments, folks. It's about what? It's about the likes and shares, isn't it? Now, why would you want to like and share today's broadcast? Because you will win, or could win, because only one of you is going to, this one-of-a-kind deformity. Again, give it to me again, Mike, the ass backwards assumptive selling. So Amazon screwed up on their way to dominating the entire world, and printed one of my copies of Assumptive Selling backwards. I'm going to sign it. I'm going to send it to you, and that's how you'll win it. Let's see. What is your contact info, please? I would like the spreadsheet. Go to my, Lisa, go to my business Facebook page and just direct message me there, or connect with me here on Facebook, and you can direct message me. But my business page.
He's also on the Dealer Refresh forums if you'd like to reach out to him there too.
Thank you. Even better. Sorry, forget everything I told you. Go to the Dealer Refresh forums, put in a forum note that says, who is Steve Stauning and how can a guy get a hold? And I'll do it. So
you should start.
I just start a thread that's who is Stauning. That would be fun.
I know some people who would like to comment on that thread.
I'm raising my hand.
Yeah, do it.
Well, we'll make that a non-moderated thread no matter what happens.
Oh,
it'll never get locked. Nothing will ever get deleted.
Do it. I'd love to see some of the Russian posts about Viagra on there. We're not going to moderate it.
That doesn't happen.
No.
Never.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's always my pleasure, gentlemen.
It's always our pleasure as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Anything else? Anybody got books to plug?
No, I have no books to plug.
The only books I have are yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, don't you have 2 books behind you you'd like to show, just, you know, for the audience?
That was just your shit sandwich
Yay!
and Assumptive Selling, which I had a confession earlier. I have not read this one yet.
You know what? Why do you want to sell more cars?
Well,
There's no
I don't
reason.
know.
There's no reason.
I've definitely enjoyed Shit Sandwich a lot.
They're different books.
That's just a good life learning, good life lessons in there.
If you have a millennial at home, folks, buy them Shit Sandwich, okay, or whatever, Generation Z. It should be required reading for freshmen in high school, I think, even though it has some curse words in it. Nothing they haven't heard.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
all right, Steve, thanks again. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this Friday, and we will be back here next week.
We'd like to thank our sponsors for this one, the OEMs.
yes.
Yeah. Bye.
All right, guys. Thanks. Take care.
Take care.